All right, you maggots, listen up. I want to do an update on the fish tank, and this is a 20-gallon long. It's got an old version of the Nikru light. It's got a timer on it for 10 hours. It has a dimmer assembly on it, so I can dim the light back. It's set for a setting for this fish tank from years ago when I had live plants, and then the tank did a crash after a year and a half, 2 years, whatever it is. But I wanted to show you where we're at now. This time we used 2 inches of sand as the substrate. No dirt underneath. I'm using Osmocal or Osmocote or whatever the little medicine tablets that you put the Osmocote or whatever in it, and you put them deep down into the substrate. Now up in the front there you see the Sagittarius, if I'm saying the word right, and it has one of the plants that set out 2 runners, and it's got 2 new baby plants. This is 2 weeks now. Now, I want to tell you what goes wrong with sand. The first thing that shows up is the fish poop. So your beautiful white sandy bottom starts getting little dots of fish poop. Now, you could vacuum that off every day to make it look nice, but I'm looking for a tank that's almost maintenance free for over 5 years. And they're saying sand on top of dirt works more than 5 years. So I'm shooting for 2 inches of sand with the tablets that I make myself, and I put them deep down in the sand. And so far, the leaves are melting on the Sagittarius, and the new leaves are coming up. The same with over that way. Let's see if we're in the frame. Same thing with the Amazon swords. The original leaves are dying, they're melting, and new little leaves are coming up. But this is what I wanted to tell you. That's not necessarily growth because of my tank, because of the fertilizer, because of the light. All plants have stored energy in them. And when you buy plants, whether you buy them in the store, online, you put them in your tank, and you notice they're opening and closing at a different time than your timer, because they're still in the rhythm of the original owner that sold them to you. And then after a while, they'll synchronize with your lighting. Now I have mine on a timer. It goes on at 12 noon, goes off at 10 o'clock at night, 10 hours. I told you I have a dimmer on the Nikru light, so it gets 10 hours of light every day. Now that brown stuff on the sand, that's diatom. That's a type of algae, and it's in your water system. It might even be in the air, but I've always had brown algae in my tanks when I first start them, but I didn't think about that. So that's why I'm doing this video. I want to show you a lot of videos on YouTube are faked. There is a video, I found a guy, and he warns you all that about the fake videos. How to tell a plant that's been grown out in the dirt and then put in a tank to make it look good. And you can tell, like the Amazon swords. Let's see if it's in the frame. They have a long stem, and then it goes to the leaf. Well, the ones that come up on the plant when it's underwater, they don't have that long stem. So when you're looking at the person's video, after a while you realize that the whole thing's been faked. But the people that are using sand, it's possible their water system, they don't get the brown algae. Okay, I'm telling you, you may get it. And I'm not touching this tank at all. I am adding water to it. I think the baby guppy's still alive. Yep, he's still swimming around. It's 2 weeks. One of the females already gave birth to one guppy. One baby guppy, he's still alive. And the original tank that I had them in temporarily, I started getting the dye off. Even though I used original water, I used original filter media, and I had to get them into this tank as soon as possible. And I still had a couple more die, but it stopped. I don't know what went wrong in the tank. See, keeping tropical fish, everybody gets different problems. And it takes years before you get really good at it. And still something can go wrong. That's why there really is no expert on tropical fish. There's experts that get a system going and they raise certain plants, they raise certain fish, and then they sell it to you, the fish and the plants. And you have terrible luck with it. It's because you have different water parameters, different lighting system. It's a very tough hobby. You might think you've got a handle on it, and then it goes bad. Like this tank, the previous setup, I don't know if I went 10 years. It might have been 10 years. And it crashed after about 2. And the plants they stopped growing. And some of the really tough plants, they died first. And then it went all the way back to I started losing cryptocoins. And the cryptocoins I had, you couldn't kill them. They were just really good. And then one day I noticed they're wilting out. And that's because the substrate, your gravel, your sand, whatever you use, it gets impacted with like fuzz. And you can stir it, you can wash it. But what happens is when you stir it, the stuff on the top, the fuzz, the diatoms and all that, they get mixed down underneath and they die. And that changes the pH of the tank. And it causes a spike in the ammonia level. So as the tank gets older, the gravel becomes more and more toxic. And people say, oh, it's the size of the tank. You can scrub the tank down. You can clean your filtration system and everything, get it all sterilized. But if you can't get rid of the substrate, you're going to keep having the problem. Really bad after 2 years. If you overfeed, you'll get this long blue-green algae that like sits on the leaves, and all the problems happen from too much food, and the tank just ages out. And that's what I'm hoping now with this cap of sand, that this stuff can't get down below and rot. See, gravel has little miniature holes that the fish feces can drop down in there. And after a while, the substrate becomes toxic, and you have to tear the tank down. Now, these guys that do dirty tanks, they're saying over 5 years. So what I have here is I have the same system they have, except that I'm putting fertilizer tabs that I make down below. But I just wanted to show you the brown algae. You know, when you go look at these guys that do this stuff, they have pure white sand. And this is play sand. It's Sakrete play sand. And it was white. Oh, and it's very light. So you can see over here towards the filter that even with my diverter, the current of the water goes down, hits the sand, and slowly moves it. So I have to build a better diverter, or put a smaller filter in the tank. But I don't want to touch nothing. See, I got a baby guppy. He's doing good. I'll have more baby guppies. And I'm letting the plants do their thing. I'm not moving anything. I'm not adding any more fertilizer. You know, the fertilizer in the water stream is from the fish. The other fertilizer is the tabs that are down. There's medicine tablets. They're down below. They've already dissolved and left the little round balls of Osmo coat or whatever it's called. That's what I used once before. Everything was fine. But the only difference this time is I'm using sand as a substrate, much tighter. And there's people that tell you, the plants can't grow in sand. It's too hard for them to put out the roots. That's nonsense. There's so much bad information on tropical fish. And these guys, they'll buy a bag, $100 worth of guppies, and they put them in a tank, and they're all swimming around. Now, in order to have, like say, 150 guppies swimming around in a small tank, you have to have another tank somewhere holding the water that's filtered. And then now you're supplying the smaller tank with the filtered water. And then you can do it. Like if you keep koi, you have this little bridge, and all the koi come in to feed, and you hundreds and hundreds of koi. But there's a bigger pond somewhere else that's holding the real water with the real bacteria. See, you can be deceived very easily by the internet. Now, this one guy started doing the video and warning you about the experts. I'm not an expert. I'm just telling you, I systematically do things. Now, I told you my last setup, which was this tank, was this filter, different heater this time, still the same thermometer. I re-cleaned this thermometer. I redid as many things as I could to save it, because I want the system to be the next step. I know my gravel was very coarse. I couldn't get the stuff I wanted. Years ago, the pet shops had bags of unmarked gravel. We used to call it pea gravel. It's bigger than sand, and I would use that. And then sometimes I would take it out to the kitchen sink or whatever. I had the spray hose then, and I would clean the gravel over, mush it around, and then put it back in. And you won't get it. You won't get a full year out of it. You got about 9 months because you can't get all those little specks of algae and stuff off the gravel. And then when you put the tank back together, that sits there and it rots. Now I'm hoping with the sand, all the problems stay on the top. But I did get an air bubble that came up through the sand, and you'll see little dots on the bottom floor, like little, almost like ant colony things. That's from some type of air bubble that's worked its way up through the sand, and it brings new sand to the top. And I didn't know that. I saw this big, like a mountain, and I dug in it with my tweezers, and all of a sudden more bubbles came up. And I was pretty sure I got all the air bubbles out of the sand. See, I'm trying to do this as a scientific thing to see if I can get past 5 years with a setup, without the minimum amount of maintenance. And if I get too many guppies this time, I'll give them away. See, my system crashed. I had too many guppies. I had those MTS Malaysian trumpet snails. There were thousands of those. That's bioload. So what happens after a while? The tank's got so much poop in it from the fish, from the snails, it crashes out. And the trumpet snails, they'll tell you, oh, they go down into the sand and they allow the sand to breathe. Well, they also go down into the sand and they poop, and then that rots down in there, and then the sand becomes toxic, and then the whole tank crashes. That's my opinion. I did the experiment, and it's just doing one experiment isn't conclusive. It's not scientific method, but I just want to tell you, the more you get into the hobby, and the more you read up on it, you see how many people will get into the hobby. They'll do these videos, and they'll start doing wacky things like buying really expensive fish, and then they tell you how the thing died or jumped out of the tank. I used to follow this stuff years ago, and I'm like, what the hell? What the hell? Did the guy read? Did he do any reading? They don't. So I did a lot of reading, and I only keep guppies. And these guys go out and buy $500-600 fish, and they don't know what they're doing. And then it dies, and they have like everybody gives them a sympathy comments and stuff. They bought a $500 fish, and they have a giant tank. They have the best filter, but unfortunately the power fails, and you got to be ready for all that. See, with keeping guppies, they can breathe from the surface if an emergency happens, but you got to get rid of the toxic water if that should happen. But a $500 fish, when that pump fails or the heater gets stuck on, that's a 500 fish you just killed. $500 fish you just killed. I think that's it. I just wanted to show you that brown algae. That's diatom. That happened the last time I set this tank up, but you couldn't see it as much on the brown gravel. And I had brown, and I had white. I put brown on top of it. I couldn't get gravel at my pet shops. They didn't have it. They only had the fluorescent stuff and the glitter. And they said, if you want regular gravel, we have to order that. So I ordered some later on from the place over it's in Lancaster, that pet place. And it's really expensive gravel. That's why I went with the play sand and shipping, because I couldn't get it locally. Everybody was out of play sand. I ended up paying $46. I think it was $46 shipped to the house, but it is enough sand for 2 inches in the tank. That's the important thing. So if I bought gravel from that pet place, I would have to buy 2 bags, and half of the bag wouldn't have got used. So I made some choices, and I'm not saying they were great choices, but I just wanted to show you what to expect. You put plants in the tank that you bought. There's going to be some growth. They're going to start growing, but it could be this stored energy from the last guy. Now I'm getting new leaves. I think you can see them as the old ones die. The old ones are darker. I think one's in the frame here. And over here, we pointed in the right place. Right there's a little baby coming up in between these two. There's a baby over here. That's runners, and that's how Sagittarius propagates. And Valsinaria, whatever, Valsinaria works the same way, but these are supposed to be dwarf Sagittarius, whatever, dwarf. And the Valsinaria, what happens is it grows really long, and you got to keep trimming it. See, I want the least amount of work. I think a hobby is like I sit here and I watch the fish swim around. Tiny bit of maintenance. I don't want it to be a job. I have the radios. That's a job. I think that's it. All right, that's it.